Yom Shlishi Parshas Beshalach Shnas Tovshin Ayin Vov Shiva Tiferes Avigdor. Today's shir sponsored for SHLITA Chassid Bas Brog. Meher V'Yameinu Soich Shor Chol Yisroel. In this week's Parsha, it's the Parsha of Monn. Now everybody heard the stories of Monn, food falling from heaven, and a lot of children, folklore. It's become a source of insanity. What do you think? Money comes down from Shemayim. You think your food comes from Shemayim. But we know that the Torah told us that there was a mitzvah of the man was an ois for all deiros. It says in the pasuk that Hashem told Moshe said to Aaron, take a tzinsenes of man, a flask of man, and put in it v'tein shama meloi ha'omer min Monn, and put it, save it, the safekeeping l'dorei seich. Now this is a davar nifli. You know why? Why is this in itself an amazing miracle? You know why, Shmuel? Close. Any man that was left over to the next morning turned to worms. Monn by nature was something that was the most quick, fast, spoiling food. Nothing spoiled faster. Even meat you leave out. Maybe it gets, to get worms, to get maggots, that takes a couple of days, maybe if not weeks. And it takes, here, there's no such thing as saving Monn. There's no such thing. And here Hashem told Moshe tells Aaron, and Hashem told me, take this Monn, and I want you to save it as a mishmeres l'dorei seichem. Pashat Mayim Bagdi. That itself was an Erdik miracle. And why? What was the purpose of that? What was the purpose of that? The purpose of the pasuk says l'dorei seichem. It's interesting that even though everything in the Torah is instructive, there's no pasuk in the Torah, there's no fact in the Torah that's not instructive, that is written in the Torah. There's no history in the Torah. History is the most unimportant subject. That's the words my Zayda used to use. I remember the first time he said it. The most unimportant subject is history. That's why the conservative and reform are always busy with history, because they want nothing to do with Lamaisa. History in the Torah is only because it's instructive for the future. And here the Torah says, Monn is lehedyu l'dorei seichem. So sometimes you have lessons you learn out. But here Hashem said the Monn itself, put it away l'dorei seichem. So it means before a person goes to work, he has to learn the Parsha of the Monn. Now Rashi says, when Yirmiyah would give teichach in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, Yirmiyah encountered a situation that what? Yidden were not learning as much Torah as they should. They weren't learning much Torah. So what happened? Rashi says, Yimei Yirmiyahu, the Navik, Yirmiyahu Moichicha. He faced the challenge of Lama Ein Atem Oiskim B'Torah. Why are you not Oisik B'Torah? It's interesting. Time of the first Beis Hamikdash, there was a rifyah. Chazal tell us in Eisek HaTorah. So Rashi says, V'heim Oimrim, they would answer back to Yirmiyah, Naniach Milachtenu V'nasik B'Torah. If you're going to forsake our work and be Oisek B'Torah, Meheichon Yisparnes, from where we will have Parnasa. Hoitzi Lahem Sinsenes Haman. So Yirmiyahu took out this flask of man that was still being saved as a mishmeres from Moshe Rabbeinu's days. That must have been a nice item for tours, Yerushalayim tours, and what should we call it? The Amar Lahem, and he said to them, Hador, Atem Ru'u Devar Hashem. He would say, take a look and see Devar Hashem. Shimu Loinam. He didn't say listen up. Ela Ru'u. And he said, Bezeh Nisparnesu Avoiseich. With this, your forefathers were supported in the Midbar. Now, somebody would tell me that, and they needed Parnasa. What would I say? Okay, so tell me, where do I go? What's the drop site? I would say, where is the drop site? Tell me. Okay, I'm not a tzaddik. I don't expect it to come to my door. I don't even expect it maybe to come to my immediate neighborhood. I'm willing to drive a little bit. Like the Rishayim in the Midbar, they had to go outside the Machana. So tell me, where is it? So l'chayra, it doesn't seem like to be the right answer. But in this Chazal, it tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted you to know that nothing changed from the time of the Midbar. And every single parnasa that comes to you me'ez Hashem, harbe shluchim yesh loy l'mokim. There are many shluchim Hashem has, l'hachim mazayin lireyav, to prepare mazayin lireyav for oiskim b'torah. Hear that? So the Tzinsenes Haman was a show and tell. This was the pircha, the refutation. Unbelievable. So here, Yidden was living in Eretz Yisroel. Ish tachas. Everybody's on their land. Ish tachas gafnoi. V'tachas te'inachai. Everybody is planting b'shas riyah, chayrish b'shas ktsira. Got to do all the things. So a person could make a mistake and think, should we stop our work and learn Torah? That's what a person has to know. So the lesson that we learn from here is as follows. That the asek, the hishtadlus, the asek that someone does for parnasa is not going to be goyrim him any parnasa. That's what a person has to know. Now, even though we don't have the Tzinsena Saman anymore, it's still the same message. It's still Chai V'Kayim. It says L'Doyrei Seich. That's what it says. So, person has to know that when you learn this parsha, you have to be mechazik yourself, number one, to understand that the lesson is chai v'kai. Now, a person has to make his shtadlus. Even in the Monn, most of the people had to make hishtadlus. The question was, what was the hishtadlus they had to get? It only for the big tzaddikim did it fall by their doorstep, and they didn't have to do any asek at all, even in the preparation. But for the Beinim and the Rishayim, they had to work for it. So the Chavetz Chaim, in Siman Aleph, Sivkot and Yud Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah writes that the lesson of the Monn is that Ribui Hishtadlus is not Maila and not Moyit. That's what a person has to do. Ribui. Hishtadlus may be a need. Hishtadlus a person needs. But he says Ribui, the lesson of the Monn is that Ribui Hishtadlus and that we saw, Hashem took Klal Yisroel, he was mefarnes them, and if somebody was marbe b'hishtadlus, it didn't get him anymore. Now, of course, if a guy was a rush, he didn't go walk out of the machane and go pick it up. Of course. Guy was a Beinoni, he had to go, he had to prepare it. There was different steps that a person had to do. But this is the thing we have to get into our kishkis. That hishtadlus is not, there's no direct correlation between hishtadlus and parnasa. No one becomes wealthy from a trade. No matter what job you have, no one becomes wealthy from, what is it, Tolian? Reb Meir said, La'olam yilmad adam es benoi umnis nikiya v'kala v'yispala. He should daven. He should teach his son an easy umnis, and he should daven l'misha ha'oisher v'hanachasim shalom. He should daven. You know why he said? She'ein ha'umnus, there's no craft in the world, she'ein ba anius ve'ashirus. There's no umnus in the world that doesn't have anius or ashirus. You know why he said? Rameh teaches us. Sheloi anius min ha'umnus, anius, poverty, does not come from any trade. The loy ashirus min ha'umnis. And ashirus does not come from any trade. Ella hakoil lefi schusay shalot. So what do? You're being mispalel. You're being mispalel to the misha ha'isher shalot. I remember encountering this face-to-face, meeting quite a few doctors that were struggling, and quite a few lawyers that were struggling. I couldn't believe it. You're a lawyer. You're a doctor. What's shaking out money? Everybody knows doctors have money. That's like an olive. I remember many years ago, many decades ago, this was a striking wake. At first I thought that was baloney, just to give you excuses. Yeah, some of them I'm sure did. excusing themselves. But you have to know, it's loy min ha'umnis, loy aniyas min ha'umnis, v'loy ashiris min ha'umnis. No such a thing. It's all totally in the schus of a mensch. If you see a person who's getting money, that's his schus. Now the Alter from Kelm said as follows. If you look around, experience, is you look around at Roiv B'nai Adam, are most people willing to work hard to make good parnasa? What would you say? Of course. Most people say, give me a chance and I will sweat. I'm ready to do the job. I'm ready to put my shoulder to the grindstone. But I want to know, it's going to be a payday. He says, the fact of the matter is, he says, most people are not lazy. Most people are tremendously ambitious. And one thing they never slack off on is an opportunity to realize their dream to increase their wealth. And every single year, they look for eitzes, how to do more hishtadlus, in the hope that maybe this year, my chaloy is going to be niskash. And in spite of that, most people don't see bracha in all of their efforts. And mamish, all of their increase of ishtadlis is mamish livatol. They go from here, they try sale, they try this job, they take courses. I've seen people go from insurance. I'm thinking, now I'm going to make it. I've seen people go from car insurance to life insurance to health insurance. I've seen people make a fortune in insurance. And I've seen many more people, because they heard that guy made a fortune, so why can't I? And they took courses, they spent more money in taking courses on how to sell insurance. And then, before long, they realized, so the guy told them, you have to sell the right insurance, sell commercial insurance. Don't sell this insurance, life insurance, health insurance, and they're going for crazy stuff. People, the internet craze, everybody's trying to make a fortune. There's a guy a few weeks ago, what are you doing that? Oh, I make myself. That's what are you doing? I said, I took a course, I paid money for a course for some Chinese guy to teach you how to make money. Plus you go on eBay, and you look for things on sale, you buy it, and then you put it back on the thing, tells you how to make between $500 and $800 a day minimum. I told the guy, look, how much you make in a day? Yesterday I made $200. Wow, that's not even near $500. And that won't pay your rent. I said, what else did you do? How much you do today? 300? Then you do tomorrow 400? It lasted a very short time. But you know what you realized? That the Chinese guy was teaching people like him, he SHLITA his courses, because he himself wasn't making money on this. No one who makes money teaches people how to take away his business. You had to be a Meshuggah to do that. You understand? So they all go in the same eBay. If let's say there's a market, and I have a market, I know I haven't found the niche where to get stuff to resell. Am I going to tell you go to the same place and you buy and resell it? I want to buy it and resell it to you. I don't want you to sell it to me. Tomorrow you sell it to me. You buy my goods, you put it on, and say, after me buy it from you. And how to price it, and how to this, that, all kind of stories the guy. No, a mensch has to understand. The Alter from Kelm said it's the same thing he watched. And he saw that Ribu Yishtadlis, and he says, amazing, at the end of the people put all their efforts, they come home, about the end of the day, end of the month, they count their money, and they can't figure it out. The money ain't there. The box is not there. It's Parsha makes it ki'ilu he wasn't mishtadl at all. And the emissaries we see that ma'atim, there's a few people who are Ashirim Yisroel. with all of their ambitions and all of their ishtadlus, for them it works. And even those people, most people are not Trumps. They're not in the billionaire class. They're in the millionaire class. A millionaire today is like an onion just getting off of food stamps. That's what a millionaire today is. You're just getting off of Medicaid. Maybe he can pay for his insurance. A millionaire is not some garnishment. So most of the Ashir that you know are what you call average Ashir. And you see most people with business. I remember there was a business in Borough Park. A guy had a business. A guy I knew well. He was related to someone from our neighborhood. He used to come every Shabbos. I said, what's the shop? I said, what are you paying rent? He said, my rent starts $29,000 a month. I said, you know how many tchotchkes you have to sell to make $29,000 a month? And he had ads, and he paid for marketing. And not only that, he had another beautiful shtick. He had a shtick, he had vans going around Borough Park, because you can't find parking in Borough Park. So you could park at the edge of Borough Park, call one of his vans, he comes, picks you up, drives you there, and he had the thing. I was in that store a number of times. The next thing I know, all the ads in all the papers, I have idea, and Yated, and this magazine, that magazine, crazy ads on the radio, and everybody went there. And the next thing you know, the guy was relegated to history. The dump, you look around, how many businesses stay around for a long time? You look around. And are making money hand over fist. Very few. There's a lot of fly-by-nights. They come and they go. They pop up. They market themselves as if, they do everything right by the book. And they find out clearly, loy hedif hamarbe, the one who increases his ishtadlus does not end up with any adifus. The hamaimit loy hichsir, and the guy who's maimit is loy hichsir. What that is? It's unbelievable. That's the klal godol that anybody who has eyes in his head to see this every day, he sees that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides how much you're making, and if you're going to work hard and be matriach. You know how many people have 2 jobs? You know how many people are working? I remember a very big businessman, who's very close to me, international businessman. The guy was a wealthy fellow. One day he comes to me, wants to open up a new business. Another business. I thought, you're missing money? He says, I like challenges. So I said, broaden your business. Why would you open another business? No, another business, more money. I said, if you knew that you weren't going to make 1 penny more on this new business, would you invest in this business? He said, no. So I told him, I'm going to tell you something. You're not making any more money. I said, you do enough ishtadlus. But he didn't listen. I told him over the Chavetz Chaim. I told him the Chavetz Chaim said that to open up 2 businesses is the equivalent of having a barrel of wine and putting a second spigot in the barrel. It's not going to double your wine. You don't double your wine. What you do is you get the wine you had out faster. There was once a fellow who came begging the Chavetz Chaim for bracha to win a lottery. And he begged and he begged and he begged. The Chavetz Chaim said, no, you should be benched. And the guy won. And the guy was the 7th heft. 7th heft. Went a few years, not living a whole new life. This was a SHLITA deluxe. You know, one of these paupers. Now the guy puts on a house. That's everything. Changed his lifestyle. A few years later, came to the Chavetz Chaim. He's broke. Chavetz Chaim said he can't help him. So what do you mean he can't help him? Why not? He said, you didn't make more money. All you got was the number of years parnasa up front. That's all. And you started living beyond your means, so you spent your money now. Now you're up the creek without a paddle. That's what a person has to realize. Now, if Hashem gives you an opportunity, you don't need, it's 2 jobs you don't need. Person has to know, if you're doing Ishtadlus, Hashem has ways of providing you with your Parnasa. Because his Ishtadlus has no shaykh. When a person says, I'm earning money, that itself is very deceptive. You don't earn any money. You could say, how much money does Hashem give you a year? That's what you have to say. I'll never forget, I was very close to a doctor and he needed money. He said he's a little short. A little short. Maybe 25 grand a year short. So he wanted to go and start to moonlight. I said, well, you out of your mind. You're going to start working in a hospital at night, in an emergency room, as a doctor. Does that make sense? Not to have a life, that's what Hashem wants? From have bitachon, if you do enough ishtadlus, Hashem could give you the parnasa without a problem. What's the problem? What's the problem? No. So he didn't. He didn't. We waited. At the end of the year, he comes to me and says, you know, I have to tell you something. I got that money. I said, really? How? He said, there was this old lady that my family took care of. A Russian lady. She came to America. She lived in an apartment. She had no relatives in the country. No relatives left in the world as far as we know. And my family befriended her. And we took care of her. And we provided for her. Eventually got sick and sicker. And we had to put her in some kind of a home. So she asked me to clean out the apartment. And what she said to me is, look for the aluminum foil bowls. He said he could very understand because she talked with a very heavy accent. Look for the aluminum foil. He said, you think it's a little for kalach, you know what I mean? Aluminum foil. Can't see, went through the house, and then in one jar he found some aluminum foil, bowls. Just crushed up. So I figured, you know, people are hoarders. A lot of people like to reuse their aluminum foil. People use their paper towels. Sometimes they come to people's house. I knew a person that used to hang his paper towels to dry. He used to get it tomorrow. But that's fine. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I mean, it's a certain mindset. You know what I mean? If you can get 2 for the price of 1, why not? That's part of marketing today. So the guy opened up the first bowl, and he noticed it contained $100. And then the guy began on a scavenger hunt. And he could gather a lot of aluminum foil balls from all over the house. Total number, $25,000. I said, well, you see, she gave it to you. I guarantee if you would have worked, you wouldn't have got that money. The lady would have dropped. She would have never told you about it. She would have decided to take it to the grave with her. And Jevin Schwarzyor cleaned out her apartment. Maybe he would have got it if he would have been curious to open up those aluminum foil bowls. That's what would happen. This is something you have to tell yourself. That's why when a person works more than he has to, this is such a yisoid. If you're taking away from your davening, if you're taking away from your life, that's not what Hashem wants, and it's unnecessary. Now, what happens is a very interesting thing. What happens is that a person decides on a course of parnasa. I knew a younger man who was very close to me, and I told him, I said, you heard from me so many times, you know this nonsense. And he went to school, he was a fine younger man, and he went to school for, don't ask, ages. And he went through, he was wanted to go into the medical field because he figures that's where the bucks are. He had a relative medical field, they could tell him that's where the money is. Medicine. And he went to medicine. Kodesh Golf, he switched from this thing to that thing, to another field. And dreht hin and dreht her. Doesn't know. Ribu yishtalus loy min ha'umnis ha'ashivus. Again, a person has to be responsible. But if a person says, well, let's say a person thinks that he must travel for hours to get parnas. There are people like that. There are people that travel from Lakewood to New York. I can't imagine. The thought of it gives me the shakes and the heebie-jeebies. To get in a bus or a car and to sit on a crowded bus and have to daven on the bus and have to eat breakfast on the bus, and you go, and they say, oh, it's only a 15-minute ride. 15-minute ride by helicopter. Or 15-minute ride if it's 3 in the morning and the bus is going 90 miles an hour and there's no police on the road, 50 miles. But if there's any other car, if there's one other car, that adds a minute. And for every other car, that adds more minutes. I don't know, I traveled back and forth many times to do that every day. I think, people do this, how do they do it? And it costs money, it's not free. There's no such thing as it's costing 50 cents a day to travel. You're putting out a few dollars. No? What's it all about? But a person thinks this is the only way I can make parnas. Now, if you believe that, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what happens. That becomes mamish. It becomes, that Hashem said, if you believe that the way you're going to get your parnas is by traveling every day 2 to 3 hours a day, you're not going to get your parnas in any other fashion. Here's a younger man, fine younger man, that wanted a job. He got a job and travel every day at least an hour to the job. But I told him it was a job in Chinuch. So it was a well-paying job. They paid better than what you could. I told him, it's just you're a starter, you have no experience. So if you like to do it, go ahead, but do it temporarily. But believe in your mind that it's not what you're going to have to do. You're not going to have to do this. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, you have to believe He can give you the same job in Lakewood, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to train you out of Lakewood. And it's testing you. If you believe you're not getting a job in Lakewood, that's how it's going to be. Don't fall into that trap. 3/4 of the way during the year, the guy did very well there. And he was given an offer in Lakewood. And the guy started to kvetch. Should I take it? Should I not take it? What do you come on, should give you a bracha. You know, every guy would give his two left hands to get such a thing. You know how many people would die for that opportunity? But that school, I'm comfortable in school. Lakewood's a more dog-eat-dog world, and I'm not pay that much. I told him it's not going to affect your parnasa ki hu zekla. Because if they offer you less, doesn't make a difference. Hashem will find you more. But you have to believe that because they gave you less, that's not the cap on your parnasa. Took many, many phone calls and a lot of convincing. But he did it. Baruch Hashem, the guy did it. The guy got his life back, doesn't have to travel anymore, travels 10, 15 minutes to work on a bad day, and he's successful. He gave him parnasa. That's what a person has to believe. And if a person does this, and a person knows this, then the person is going to be successful. Remember this, Rabbi say, for the rest of your life, every single one of you will be faced with this challenge. There's no one here that's not going to be faced with this challenge. I was faced with this challenge tens and tens of times. I can't tell you. And sometimes I failed. I fell into the trap, and Hashem showed the bottom of the pit. There was a big flush. And when you hit the bottom of the pit, where the gold was, all of a sudden the flusher went on. The water came running in, boom, everything went down the drain. That's what happened. Just now, ISIS had these places where they hid like millions and billions of dollars of cash. And the Russians came and bombed those places, and there was money flying all over the place. They destroyed, they sent bombs, not against them, against their money. All their money, goodbye. That's what happens. The person knows that. Hashem does that for you. Whoa. And then at times you don't fall into this trap. You're able to withstand it. Remember, think right. Are you making ishtadlus? Could Hashem? I don't care if everybody in the world tells you. Remember this guy told me, how can I get a job? What jobs in Lakewood do how can I get? Then why not? Why can't I get a job like that? Hashem's not in Lakewood. Why can't Hashem give you a job in Lakewood? Of course Hashem give you a job in Lakewood. Anything can happen in Lakewood. And we're going to end off with a little story. Here's a fellow, came to me once, went for a Shabbos to Lakewood. Somebody insisted I meet the fellow. I met a fellow, and Erev Shabbos afternoon, Dav Mincha and Ukes. And then we had something down for a talk. And the guy told me it's this and that. He's very upset with Lakewood because he's kicking his job, kids into schools. Yeshiva man, pay his beard, Erlocha, guy. So I'm not going to get any schools. I said, do you think so? You know, I'm not connected. You have to have politics. You have to have this. You have to have that. So yes, I don't subscribe to that. I believe that the British fears development. And who, in opposition of what everybody else thinks, that this fellow runs the schools in Lakewood, or that fellow runs the schools in Lakewood, and you got to have connections. I'm telling you who really runs the schools in Lakewood. His name is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he takes in every kid and keeps out every kid, and that's what happens. I said, if you're being kept out, you got a problem with the British. What's your problem? Instead, I said, you learn, you this, yeah, this. So I told him, you know, Shabbos is a big bracha. Shabbos for me is dead. Shabbos, I don't do that. Shabbos is my day off. Shabbos. I told him, well, that's a Makara bracha, and that's the first thing you're going to change. I said, you give tzedakah. Lowers his eyes. I said, you give tzedakah. He said, did you get a heter? I think another one is a heter. No. Why don't you get tzedakah? My wife asked me the same question. She says, I have a problem. My problem is, I can't get tzedakah. I have a sickness. I'm a cheap miser. I can't part with my money. I like to take it in. So I told the guy, if you break the thing in this, Mitzvah, you get into schools. You get into any school you want to. Show Hashem you're willing to. So he said, what should I do? I said, make a cheshbon. We made a cheshbon how much money you had to give stuff. You owed about 25 grand to stuff. He said, if I would give 25 grand, I would have massive cardiac arrest, epileptic fit, and an aneurysm, my brains would blow up. I said, okay, we'll do it slow. I said, send out a check for tzedakah for $1,000. Take your favorite moisid, send out $1,000. So he said, okay. I said, you gonna do it? He said, I'll tell you the truth. I won't do it. I can't do it. I don't know how to write out such kind of funds. So I said, what's it gonna take? He said, the only thing that's gonna work is if you come to the bank with me right now, then, and I take the money out, then maybe it'll work. I said, sure, I don't want you. First, I don't want the money. You should think I'd get you money. He said, do me a favor, please. If you think it's going to work, come with me to the bank. So, got in my car, drove to the bank on Madison Avenue, and we pulled into the Wachovia there, and it was Erev Shabbos. Everybody was great to V'nichnas, Al Yisroel, Al Shnar, the Luxus, with the cash, we're coming in and out of there. The kitzer, the guy goes in, wait 10 minutes, he comes out. I said, what happened? You have money? He said, no. I said, what? He said, I was on the line. I said, my heart. I said, are you out of your mind? I said, are you crazy? I said, go inside, get the money out. Come on. I don't know if you have, I don't have to have the right ID. I said, you have a license on you? What do you need? Your mother's birth certificate? What do you don't need it. What are you talking about? It was like Gehenna with the guy. I told the guy, I don't play this. You don't want to do it? Don't do it. The guy went in. He came out with $700. And he was having palpitations, mamish palpitations. Gave me the money. I said, can you give it to Parsha? No. He says, if I don't give it to you, it's going right back where it came from. He said, I'm telling you, it's a problem. He gave me the money, and he kept the Shabbos where he's supposed to be. Sunday, we drove to a chasana in Baltimore. Monday, we were coming home, I get a call. Guy calls me up. He said, right now with a SHLITA together, this young man, he's being minded to Hashem that he got his kids into the best school that he was dreaming of. They Parsha called him up yesterday to bring his kids in Monday to enroll. So, I want to know, I didn't know you had such good connections with him. I said, who's at the SHLITA? He tells me, 2 Rosh Yeshivas from Lakewood. Whoever he went to try to get, protect you with, he named me a couple of Rabbanim, who he went and bemoaned his fate to. They all came to this thing. So this guy said, the Rabbanim wants to know, what was your mahalach? So I said, there's no mahalach. There's no mahalach. I'm telling you, there's no mahalach. The guy just did what he had to do. And the Rebbeinu Shalom. I keep going, I hang the phone up, another guy calls me and says, I'm the Baal boss in the house where the SHLITA is taking place. I'm in another room, privately. Tell me the answer. It's like, what does it take? This is like such power. I said, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share the honest truth. He said, oh, please, I won't tell anybody. I'm sure you won't. I said, I'm telling it to you, and I want you to tell it to people. So what? I said, it's not a secret. I'm going to tell you something. I want you to tell it to people. If you do the will of Hashem, Hashem does your will. If you break your will, Hashem does your will. How many times do you have to call him? I said, I didn't call him a half a time. I didn't call the guy one time, no time. He says, come on, there's no such thing like this. It's like, I couldn't talk to the guy. Rabbi said, it's not a shtatus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu.